Sing praises to your name. Oh Lord, praises to
It's my privilege to speak to you about my old friend, Kim Clement. I'll never forget how I met him. I just got to Port Elizabeth and I'd been told in Cape Town already about this amazing musician that could play a keyboard like I'd never heard before. But I presumed that he was in a church with that talent and that gifting. One day I was walking down, so I'd made no effort to find him because I don't believe in sheep stealing and trying to take somebody out of another man's worship team. But I was walking down the main street when I heard somebody playing a keyboard and playing it magnificently and playing the gospel. So I was drawn to the shop and walked in. There was a young man playing there, some gospel song. I can't remember which one it was, but I knew when I heard it, I knew this is awesome talent. And he introduced himself as Kim Clement, chatted to him and asked him where he was worshiping and what music group he was in, and he said no, he wasn't, because he'd been in a full gospel church in Utenake from whence he came. He was born and bred in Utenake, and the other musicians had been so jealous of his incredible talent that you didn't feel at home there, and it kind of put. I said, man, we got a little prayer meeting, it's just a few people, would you come and play? He said he'd love to. He came and played for me that night. We'd never had singing like that before because his music, his keyboard playing was so marvelous. But what really blew me was when we'd sung for some time and it was coming to the end of the normal worship period, he began to sing the song of the Lord. And my hair stood straight on end. I hadn't heard anything like that. I said to him, Kim, you shouldn't be selling keyboards. You've got an amazing gift, but the anointing is so strong. Anyway, to cut a long story short, we chatted. He ended up accepting an offer from me to become my youth pastor and my music director. I was so blessed, and then he told me something. He said, I've had invitations to come on to staff and to go full-time, but he said, I've never had peace about it. He said, but this morning I woke up and said, God, if you want me to go in the ministry, let somebody come across my path and invite me onto their team. And I was the privileged one to invite this amazingly talented and incredibly anointed young man onto my staff. Well, he changed our music completely. The joke is the vice chairman's wife, Louise, she played the piano. She couldn't even play it very well, but she dominated everything. She dominated the church. And for the first few weeks, she played the piano while Kim played the keyboard. Her lip hung on the ground because she was completely overawed by his talent. But good old Louise, it didn't take her long. She decided to assert her authority. So one Sunday morning, Kim called out, we're playing in the key of F, and she shouted, no, G, and started to bang on the piano in G, and Kim was playing in F, which would be a cacophony of sound, but Kim just put his foot on the pedal and drowned her out. She realized nobody could hear her because he was really playing it very loudly to drown out her ridiculousness. So she stopped playing, sat on the platform in front of the congregation. She was a woman in her 50s by then, I think, and she shoved her fingers in her ears and sat there like a pouting little 5-year-old. I mean, it was ridiculous beyond words. Cut a long story short, I saw her that day and she resigned and I accepted her resignation. So Kim became the youth pastor and the music director, and as I said, our music was amazing. I've heard a lot of amazing pianists. I don't know if I've ever heard I'm not talking about on television. I'm talking about live. I've never heard a more amazing pianist, keyboardist in all my life. He was just phenomenal. Anyway, he became my youth pastor, but he never preached. He was just a kid. He'd never preached. And so all he did was pray. And I had a crisis arise in the church, the most wonderful crisis. The Christian parents began to phone up and said, we have a problem with our kids. They in Kim Clement's youth, and all they want to do is pray. They pray morning, noon, and night. And we think this is overdone. They're praying too much. I think it was pricking the old people's consciences. And so Kim had a prayer thing going on here. Then it was the early days of people falling out under the power. So I was a little bit skeptical, and I said, Kim, you mustn't have a catcher, because it's a suggestion that people would fall because they've got a guy. So Kim had such an anointing, when he touched the people, they went out in the power. So I go to the meeting one day, and he just had a concrete floor with a thin canvas. And these guys were hitting the floor so hard. I said, Kim, please get a catcher for my sake, not for their sake, because of the power of God.
Praises to your name.
And then he wasn't with us half as long as we wished, but he fell in love with Jane. I often joke and say, Fred and Nellie did a dirty. They got a bait on the end of the hook in the person of Jane, and Nellie Roberts' sister's daughter. But it was God's timing. Fred was more mature than me, and had much more scope to develop Kim. But I'd have Kim down all the time. And this is what I wanted to tell you. You know, Kim would come down from Durban, and his music and his prophetic singing was always, it was incredible right from the beginning. But then he'd get up and he'd say, there's a Mary in the house, God. And by that time we were running over 200 people, 250 people. And I'd sit there and think, give me a break, Kim. There's got to be a Mary somewhere, or a John, or a David. You know what I'm saying? But later on he came, and he called a church was jam-packed. By that time, we'd extended the building 500 people, and he called a woman off the front row, and her husband was standing in the entrance of the foyer, and he said, your husband's at the entrance of the foyer, go fetch him. And he was perfectly accurate. I never forgot that. And then when I was in America years later, we were in Detroit, Michigan. He said, the three ladies in this meeting, all of you have a brother living in New York City, and all three brothers have the name John. Well, that is remarkable. Detroit is probably 1,500 kilometers, I'm guessing now, from New York. To my amazement, three women come forward. First one looked like a darker skinned sort of woman. She said, you're from the Philippines, you've got a brother that you're praying for in the Philippines, and as well as this brother in New York. And he described where this brother in New York lived, described the physical attributes of the buildings around his house, and he was absolutely correct, and prophesied to the second one where the brother John got to an old lady. She was very smartly dressed, quite elderly, and he said, why do I see books? Oh, he said, it's libraries. Your brother is a professor in a university in New York. She said, that's right. Then he said, your brother has written books. He's about to write his 12th book. His 12th book is how God healed him of prostate cancer and delivered him from a homosexual lifestyle. That woman fell on her nose like a pole. Kim told me many stories, and I'd keep you here all day, of amazing victories, of how he actually met with George W. Bush when he was president and prophesied to him, and Bush gave him a word in return that was so spot on for where Kim was. So Kim got a word from the President of the United States, who was the one world power at that time. What can I say? I don't know why the Lord has taken my friend home. He's been a huge blessing to me. Been a huge blessing to me, my wife, my son, and to our congregation. I'm just sorry that it's such a long time ago that he was lost, or that he ministered in Word of Faith. Let me tell you just one of the stories. The last time he came to Word of Faith, church was jam-packed, 2,000 people, and he said to a lady, he said, "You've got a brother who's an alcoholic." And he said, "Go get in your car, go down to Ring Street, because he's lying in the gutter there right now. Go fetch him. God has a purpose for his life." She got in the car and found her brother lying in the gutter exactly where he told her. Why the Lord took him home at this time, in the book of Habakkuk, the prophet says, "God, why have you allowed these things?" We'll know. And then the Lord answered him and said, "At the end of time, you'll understand." I had an experience when I went through terrible deep waters. And after everything had been sorted out and the trial had ended, a prophet, wasn't Kim, but Kim took me to this prophet. That's the thing. I went to Durban, and Kim arranged for me to meet the prophet. Dick Mills was his name. Told me my whole life and told me the secrets of my heart and explained to me why God had let me go through that test. And I just want to tell you right now that God has a purpose and a plan. We don't understand it. I want to tell you, I don't know why God is on this earth, silence Kim Clement, but I pray that God will raise up 100 Kim Clements out of this sudden passing at the very young age of 60. I thank the Lord for sending Kim Clement to be my first youth pastor, my first music director. May the Lord comfort his family. May the Lord protect and look after Jane and the children, supply their financial needs. Have a wonderful day. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Your name is great. Yes, it is.